Good afternoon, everybody. This is the webinar for Measure 98 for JDEP YCEP. Can people hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, Sam.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. And in our room today, we have the Measure 98 team, and I'll let them introduce themselves. My name is Sam Coe from Oregon Department of Ed for LTCT, JDEP, YCEP, and Department of Corrections.
I'm Jan McCoy. I'm on the Measure 98 team.
I'm Janelle Ives. I'm with the High School Success Measure 98 team.
Adam Henning, YCEP, JDEP, LTC team.
Hi, I'm Donna Brandt, and I'm working with the High School Success Measure 98 Grant Administration.
Hi, my name is Art Witkowski, and I'm from the Secondary Post-Secondary Transition team for CTE. And those of you that have worked with Tom Thompson in the past, I'll be taking his place as your CTE contact.
And thank you for everyone for taking time out of your busy schedules to participate in this. And I know your time is valuable, so let's just go into it.
Hi, this is Art. I just want to give you a quick overview of Measure 98. It was passed by the voters of Oregon with a 68% margin and was signed into law by the governor, or actually the governor didn't have to sign it into law. It was a petition movement. But we're dealing with Measure 98 now, and you're going to hear high school success instead of Measure 98 because that's going to be the official title. There are three components of Measure 98. It was voted in to help increase graduation rates, improve high school graduates ready for college or career by allowing for dual credit opportunities and also reducing absenteeism.
All right, we'll talk a little bit about the grants, and you have not yet received your grant agreement, I don't believe, although after the webinar today, we will make contact with the procurement staff to kind of make sure that those get out in the next day or so. Sam, would you go ahead and exit out and show the allocations? I know that you haven't even seen the amount of funding that you'll have available, but there it is. It's broken out by the institution. The 17-19 allocation you'll see there, that's good for 2 years. So once you sign your grant agreement, when you receive it, you'll have access to that amount in column L to be used anytime from now, or actually from July 1st, 2017, until the end of the biennium. So that would be June 30th, 2019. So a lot of people think they've got to spend that money in a hurry, and you really don't. You've got almost 2 years to spend that. And we're hoping that people are really thoughtful and plan out kind of how they can leverage those funds to make sure that they're eligible in the second year in order to have a real high quality thought out program in order to increase student success, whether that's graduation, access to college, or careers after their high school career. So if we could go, and then the 18-19 allocation is what we believe will be the amount for your second year of funding. It should be pretty clear to that. There are some guidelines around your allocation amount and the number of programs that you should invest in. And all of you, except for Lord High School, are under $100,000. And what that means to you is that as you move forward with your high school success initiatives, you can choose to invest your funds in dropout prevention strategies, career and technical education, or access to college credit or college level opportunities for students. So you all have a choice to do one of those. Lord High School, because you are over the magic $100,000 mark, you're required to do 2 of those activities, and one of them must be CTE. So just to reiterate, you have CTE as a requirement, and then you can choose to either do dropout prevention or access to college level work. All right, if we could go back to the slide. Thank you. These funds will be made available once your grant agreement is signed and you've turned it back into the ODE procurement office. There's a mailbox called ODE procurement. The link will be on the email that you get with the grant agreement in it. And once you get that turned back in, the funds will become available through EGUMS. It's a reimbursement grant, just like most of our grants here from ODE. If you don't have EGUMS access yet, you'll need to contact the procurement office, and they will send you whatever it is that you need to get set up. And as I've said, you know, these funds, the first year, are good all the way through the end of the biennium. The second year of funds will expire at the end of the biennium. And Janelle and Jan will talk a little bit more about eligibility and what we're heading toward. But those are kind of the nuts and bolts about how to access the money like for the first year. But really keep your eye on that second year and being ready to be eligible for next year. Do you have any questions at this point in time?
No.
If you do, you can always chat them and we can answer them at the end.
So no questions, anybody?
Not yet.
Okay. And I saw some people just joining in, so I'll bring up the, and this will be emailed out. I'm bringing up the amounts for those that just signed in. Okay, so since we have no questions, we'll continue.
All righty. My major portion of Measure 98's intent is about providing equity, that is, serving students who have been underserved in the past. You can see that when we're reviewing both eligibility and the actual plans, we'll be using the equity lens. This is actually, it references not only a concept, but an actual document you can download from ODE's website to get a clearer idea of what we're looking at there. The improvement of outcomes really is intended to extend to students currently not supported by the educational system. We have a real concern that districts might well focus on students they've already been serving well, and that will be a challenge in trying to review these. Now, that may be a little less of an issue for you because of the student population you're dealing with. There is a needs assessment that's required as well. You're required to expand or enhance offerings based on that needs assessment as opposed to intuition. So we're going to be providing a needs assessment that to help direct the work a little bit. There are some eligibility requirements, and before I even show any of these to you, I want to acknowledge that your situation is somewhat different from a typical comprehensive high school. So we are actually hoping we can put together a small group of a few of you who can provide us some input on both the eligibility and the planning that you're interested in doing. We have some ideas of where we think you can best use the money based on what Measure 98 really is targeting, but we actually don't even want to share those with you until we've heard from you to know what your ideas are, because we don't want to bias any of the discussions. So let's talk a little bit about the eligibility. There is a needs assessment, I mentioned that. It will be coming out soon as part of the application process, and in fact, we anticipate putting that out by November the 1st, and that's really optimistic. But we expect it will be out there. It'll be ready. And it does say in Measure 98, and this is the focus of the whole effort, is establishment or expansion of programs in career tech ed, college-level opportunities, and dropout prevention. These are expansions or new established programs. If the program's already been in place since before December the 16th of 2016, then you can't use these funds to maintain it as is. You can, however, expand it or improve its value by buying new equipment, that sort of thing, if that's what's necessary. Next up, we have a required plan of activities. We're about to release the template for that. It will be an online form. It'll be very interesting to see how that works out. Looking forward to it. One of the things the measure calls for is collaboration meetings. The rules actually say sufficient time for teachers to meet and collaborate around the students, the teachers in the 9th grade, specifically calls for 9th grade teachers, pardon me, getting together to talk about how the programs are working for students and what might be done to improve outcomes for students, either groups of students where there seem to be underserved groups or individual students who seem to be challenged. There is a requirement independent of all other requirements, so it's separated on its own, to institute practice to reduce chronic absenteeism. I think you'll probably do pretty well at that. Also, equitable assignment to courses is a big issue. In some high schools, it's not really clear that students have equitable opportunities to get involved in advanced coursework and that sort of thing. It'll be interesting to talk with you and find out the issues here for your students. And once more, systems ensuring on-time graduation. Essentially, that's the freshman on track information. Are you tracking data to see if students are progressing through? We understand that some of your programs are extremely brief, and that's another issue we need to talk with you about. Finally, to the extent possible, the schools and districts are required to enter into partnerships with local community organizations, with tribal organizations, with other groups that have an interest in student graduation rates and who can provide some kinds of support. So, and most of this will be involved, the block on the left is all going to be in the application. There won't be any outside materials you have to provide. The issue of the teacher collaboration meetings that's going to be there's a need for data, and we'll need to talk with you as well about what you've got for student information systems and how you're managing those data. It's a fairly substantial block of information we're asking for the typical high schools to track. So it'll be interesting to find out what your capacity is there, and in fact what your need is there. So, the block there on the lower right is required prior to funding. That is, these are eligibility requirements. The way the law is written, you have to have in place practices to reduce chronic absenteeism, equitable assignment to courses, and systems ensuring on-time graduation before you're eligible for each second-year funding. That's not exactly how the law will be applied. What we're looking to do is have a baseline from each district or school and then work toward improving from that point. If you have none of those in place, it would be challenging for us to allow you to start spending money on CTE directly and not on these efforts. But if you've already got that in place, then you can move on to improving those things and also doing CTE, for instance, or other dropout prevention efforts. But once again, we want to make sure that this is applied reasonably to you. I mentioned that equity is an important issue in this effort. Well, equitable treatment of the schools and districts is just about as important. So we want to make sure that we get a chance to talk with you folks and find out what it is would be best suited to your needs. Next up, we have plan requirements. The law requires a multi-year plan. The first year plan is due next June. It will actually be submitted in January, the end of January, but we're looking to have them all approved and ready to go by the 30th of June so we can fund the 1st of July. The first plan will be a 3-year plan. Beyond that, any submitted plan would be a 4-year plan. So there's a plan due this coming January for the July 19 to July 20 period. No, July 18 to July 19. And then there's a plan due the following year in January of 19 for the July 19 to July 20 period. And then it'll go every 2 years from that point forward. The law does require that you have sufficient time for teacher collaboration. The plan asks how much data you have, and then it asks for a clear plan for your implementation of whatever efforts you're going to undertake. As Donna mentioned, you actually have a lot of latitude in what those efforts might be because of your lower levels of funding.
So we have a question. To receive these funds, will we apply with our school district or separate? Yes. And it sounds vague, but it really isn't. You can collaborate with anyone you feel is a good collaborator. So if it's valuable to collaborate with the district, you can collaborate with them. If it's better for you to go forward alone, you can do that. So it really is, we're encouraging collaboration. So if some of you wanted to collaborate together, if that seemed appropriate, that would be acceptable as well. The collaboration is really structured in the way that serves your local needs best.
And as far as the grant agreements go, those grant agreements will come directly to you. The funds are under your control to either work with others, to collaborate, to pool your funds, to do different things. But this first year of grant agreement will come to you to decide how you're going to spend them.
So here's a question that someone might have. Suppose our allotment is about $20,000. But if we join with other entities and our now allotment is over 100,000, do we have to do 2 of the 3 or just one with the one original?
You're only required to do what you have allocated money for.
Great.
So there would only be each required to do their one thing.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But that might mean some collaborators have to do 2 if they're collaborating with someone else, but they wouldn't have to do 2. It's an interesting challenge.
Right.
And it's also possible that you might collaborate with someone to do part of the work and retain some of the funds for your own flexible work. This is really about how you structure the collaboration.
Okay, great, thank you.
Next up.
Yep.
You do have to have something in there about reducing chronic absenteeism. I'm not really sure the extent to which that's a problem for you, so we can talk about that. And then equitable course assignment. That would be dependent, of course, this really does target the college level courses. That's what this is talking about. So if that's not a direction you're headed, this may be less of an issue for you. And then you also have to be working to ensure on-time graduation. All of that is required in order to move forward with funding for the second year. But as I say, what we're going to go with is a baseline on based on where you are right now, and then show in the plan efforts toward improvement. And then the rest of the plan is establishing or expanding your programs in any of those 3 areas for most of you. And for Lord, it would include CTE and one of the other 2 areas. All that will be included in the plan format, and you'll be addressing it in your development of plans. Thanks. That's what I had to say about, partnerships. It'll be challenging and interesting to see what you guys can do with partnerships. I think it'll be very interesting to see if we can work some things out that would be helpful for you. So.
Okay, so you've gotten a really quick introduction to the High School Success Measure 98, and we thought it might be helpful to start brainstorming and hearing some of your ideas about what you think you might be able to do with these funds. I did see a question come up about on-time graduation means regular diploma, modified diploma, GED. Typically, graduation in our terms includes both the regular and modified diploma in terms of our graduation rate. Our completers include GED. I think the overall goal is also about college and career readiness, and with the GED, the new GED being so rigorous, and the evidence that our students who are completing that GED are doing really well in college, even though that doesn't count under our graduation, I would say that is still a good goal and would be something that these funds could be used towards in certain settings.
But our main goal for YCEP JDEP continues to be high school graduation diploma.
Yeah. So they can unmute, right, and talk if they want. Okay, so if anyone has some ideas or wants to start sharing what you're thinking of, if I know some of the structures and the way the measure was written doesn't quite always fit with your setting. So if you have some ideas or concerns and want to talk with the group, this is our chance to do that. And we'll all, of course, be available for further questions anytime during this process.
And one of the questions that we saw that came into Art was, because of security concerns, can Measure 98 funds be used for juvenile justice staff, like either county justice staff or OIA staff? No, these funds are for education. And do anyone out there have any ideas they'd like to share or have any questions or what support you'll be needing?
So I guess my question is, as soon as we do our grant application and all that, then we can start spending the money?
So once you, your grant application, that won't be something that doesn't come till later. But the grant agreement that you're going to get in your email, Once you sign that, the money will be available for you to draw down. You can actually apply these funds toward anything that you have put in place after July 1st. That's part of the high school success program. So that's kind of a long answer. So
I meant agreement. Thank you.
Okay, and does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
There's no required plan or even description of your intended activities for the current school year. That will be what we get in, as I say, by the 31st of January, describing activities following July of 2018.
Right, and your grant agreement, you'll probably want to at least take a look through it. It's like a 35-page legal document. But basically what it says is that you're going to follow the law, which is that you're going to, do those 3 things and get eligible with your money.
So a question came in. Can these funds be used to purchase curriculum supporting job exploration?
So career exploration and having personal goals and a plan for your education is extremely valuable, and there is a lot of evidence that shows that that helps students succeed. I would say just buying curriculum alone would probably not be adequate, but if you have some plans on implementing career exploration and connections with career pathways, that would be a very good use of these funds and appropriate for your settings.
Another question that came up, how are people approaching the practices to reduce chronic absenteeism given circumstances in JDEP YCEP settings? So for instance, within the facility, absenteeism shouldn't be an issue, but once they leave our facilities, the transition of reconnecting our students to a neighborhood K-12 high school should be there, or another educational setting. So potentially, could they use Measure 98 funds to help assist students after they have left the facility?
That seems like a really good idea. I'd want to talk with somebody a bit more about it, because you're spending money outside your program if you're not careful. So I think it really depends on how you structure it, but it seems like a really good idea. That's one of the biggest challenges for these students, and therefore it's something we want to encourage, that the transition is smooth.
Yeah, and the best practice is really to have those strong transitions in place. We know that this is a real danger point for students, is when they leave the facility and now they're trying to reintegrate with education, and that is a really tough process. So having some strong transition programs, I think, would be a really good use of fund. There's a lot of evidence, if you were looking for evidence for your programs, about how to do that. So we'd be happy to work.
Yeah, with the goal of graduation, obviously, transitioning to somewhere where you can continue your instruction is a good idea. So the transition would be really valuable, yes.
And this would be a good opportunity, too, for one of those partnerships, to get with your local school district and maybe to co-invest in some transition strategies for students coming out of your facilities.
So a question came in, will these funds go to the district where the program is, or to the organization running the program? It will go to the JDEP and LTC, the JDEP and YCEP education provider. For instance, in Douglas County, it's Douglas ESD that runs the JDEP program within Roseburg School District's boundaries. Measure 98 funds will go to Douglas ESD, because they are the educational provider at that facility. And I believe we have, and then I think on our Excel spreadsheet for, these are the people, like for Mount Nebo, we have Brian Henson, and for the other JDEP sites, we have our ESD people. Another question that came in, if we are working on dropout prevention and hire a graduation coach, can a VSOY student participate in any work we do, since our YCEP and VSOY population is mixed? And for our Measure 98 team, VSOY students are students that have a high school diploma or are already over 21, because in OIA, kids go up to age 25. So so there are instances where Hawaii facilities have graduates and.
Yeah, that's something we're going to have to take under advisement. We really don't have a solid answer for that one. Generally, with the goal being progress toward graduation and successful graduation, there may be a challenge there, but we don't know. We'll have to give it some thought. And we'll be talking about that internally.
I wrote that question down, and when you get back together later to talk about eligibility, we might have an answer for you. We should have, sorry.
Okay, are there any questions out there? And just for everyone's information, the Measure 90 team will be your go-to people, and then I will not be approving the EGAMS grants. You know, it'll be someone on the Measure 90 team. Unlike, you know, the JDEP and other stuff and YCEP, it's funneled through us, but for this, it'll be through the Measure 90 team.
Actually, something else I'll mention while we're waiting on another question. We are planning on having peer reviews on the plans, and it might actually be really valuable if we could get some folks from the JDEP or YCEP programs involved in that. So it won't be a lot of off-site time or anything like that. It's going to be all done online. So if you're interested in reviewing plans, that might be really valuable to you. We find that to be really good staff development because you see what other people are doing and how they're approaching these things. And it might be particularly valuable to you to be able to review other sites' plans. So that won't begin until January 31st, but at the earliest. But we'd like you to keep that in mind as you consider through this year.
Are there any other questions or comments or thoughts? And this webinar is being recorded. I'll post it on YouTube. I'll make sure like it happens this time. Last time we couldn't, and so forth. So I'm going to count to 7, and if not, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody. Have a good weekend. Bye.